was asked to write a memo to the Attorney General recommending that these 9 individuals get this relief that she was interested in granting to some deserving Americans. And when the memo came back to me, the comment was, please add Mel Gibson to this recommendation.
Who asked you to add Mel Gibson?
An official in the office of the Deputy Attorney General who is running this project on the day-to-day instructed me that Mel Gibson should be added to the memo.
Do you know the name of that person? Could you?
Democrats are fighting back, and not with tweets or sound bites, but with shadow hearings, because the MAGA Republicans are too cowardly to hold real ones. So what's happening? Senate and House Democrats are taking matters into their own hands, calling whistleblowers, exposing corruption, and they're doing it even as Republicans try to deflect with Hunter Biden conspiracy theories. Democrats are saying, forget the distraction. Let's talk about the real issue, a federal government being hijacked by Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And if Republicans won't hold the hearings, Democrats will, and we here at the Midas Touch Network are broadcasting them live. These shadow hearings are getting huge viewership streamed right here, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a second of this critical work. Now, let's talk about the most powerful moment from the most recent hearing. One of the star witnesses was Liz Oyer, a former Justice Department official. She worked in the DOJ's Pardon Division, and about a month ago, her story broke. The Trump regime reportedly tried to force her to pardon Mel Gibson, which would restore his gun rights, despite serious past concerns about domestic abuse. Liz Oyer said, "No, I will not do that," and the next day, she was fired. But it didn't stop there. She testified that she was harassed, threatened, and intimidated by Trump's DOJ, including by Trump defense attorney Todd Blanche. She received a letter accusing her of ethics violations, a thinly veiled threat to her bar license, her career, her livelihood, and yet despite that, she showed up at the shadow hearing yesterday, brave, honest, undeterred. She says at the end of last week, when it became known that she was going to be testifying, the Trump regime through the U.S. Marshals were sending her correspondence. And here's where things get even darker. According to Liz Oyer's testimony, the Trump regime went full authoritarian, threatening to send armed U.S. Marshals to her home to intimidate her into silence. Let that sink in. They didn't actually follow through, but just the threat alone? Chilling. Their goal? To serve her with a letter warning that if she testified at the shadow hearing, they'd go after her for supposedly violating executive privilege. A bogus accusation, and everyone knows it. They even claimed she'd be breaking ethical obligations to her client. Newsflash. Her client was the American people. Now, before we show you her explosive testimony, there's another name you need to know, Abrego Garcia. This is another story the Trump regime doesn't want you to hear. In 2019, Abrego was under protected immigration status. A Trump-appointed judge ruled he was not to be deported to El Salvador, but guess what? They deported him anyway, to a concentration camp. A federal district court, the Fourth Circuit, and even a temporary order from the Supreme Court tried to stop it, but the Trump administration went ahead with it. And when the DOJ lawyer who told the truth about the error in court did the right thing, he was punished, put on administrative leave, because again, truth is the enemy in Trump world. This pattern is clear. DOJ lawyers, FBI officials, truth tellers, they're being terminated, silenced, or threatened. And yet the MAGA Republicans won't touch this. They refuse to hold hearings. That's why these shadow hearings matter so much, and that's why we are proud to cover them right here on the Midas Touch Network. Now let's go to Liz Oyer. Her courage is unmatched, and her words deserve to be heard. Here's what she said yesterday at the shadow hearing.
Perhaps the most personally upsetting part of the story is the lengths to which the leadership of the department has gone to prevent me from testifying here today. On Friday night, around 9:15, I learned that the Deputy Attorney General's office had directed the Department's Security and Emergency Planning Service to send 2 armed Special Deputy U.S. Marshals to my home to serve me with a letter. The letter was to be served at my home between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock on Friday night. I was in the car with my husband and my parents, who are sitting behind me today, when I got the news that the officers were on their way to my house, where my teenage child was home alone. Fortunately, due to the grace of a very decent person who understood how upsetting this would be to my family, I was able to confirm receipt of the letter to an email address, and the deputies were called off. The letter had been emailed to me just before 8 o'clock that night. At no point did Mr. Blanche's staff pick up the phone and call me before they sent armed deputies to my home. The letter was a warning to me about the risks of testifying here today. But I am here because I will not be bullied into concealing the ongoing corruption and abuse of power at the Department of Justice. DOJ is entrusted with keeping us safe, upholding the rule of law, and protecting our civil rights. It is not a personal favor bank for the president. Its career employees are not the president's personal debt collectors. I see only Democratic members here today, but this is not a partisan issue. It should alarm all Americans that the leadership of the Department of Justice appears to value political loyalty above the fair and responsible administration of justice. It should offend all Americans that our leaders are treating public servants with a lack of basic decency and humanity. Thank you.
Powerful stuff right there. And just to remind you, because this context matters, we talked earlier about the situation involving Mel Gibson. Yes, that Mel Gibson. Trump and his allies pressured Liz Oyer, a seasoned lawyer in the DOJ's pardon office, to push through a pardon that would restore Mel Gibson's gun rights. Why? Who knows? But what we do know is this. Liz Oyer refused to play along. She reviewed the file, she did her job, and she said, "No, I'm not going to be part of this." And what happened next? They fired her, threatened her, tried to silence her. It's important you hear Liz explain this in her own words, because it makes what she said at the shadow hearing even more powerful. Here's her earlier appearance on CNN, where she talks about the pardon demand, the fallout, and her termination.
I was asked to write a memo to the Attorney General recommending that these 9 individuals get this relief that she was interested in granting to some deserving Americans. And when the memo came back to me, the comment was, please add Mel Gibson to this recommendation.
Who asked you to add Mel Gibson?
An official in the office of the Deputy Attorney General who is running this project on the day-to-day instructed me that Mel Gibson should be added to the memo.
Do you know the name of that person? Could you share it with us?
It's one of the associate deputy attorney generals. There are several in the office, and I don't want to call anyone out by name, but there is email traffic between me and a number of individuals in the deputy attorney general's office about this issue, and the request was made, and I responded that I was unable to fulfill the request because I did not have enough information about Mr. Gibson to be able to recommend that, given his history of domestic violence, he should receive his gun rights back. That's something that is a public safety question. It's very dangerous to mix people with history of domestic abuse and firearms. That substantially increases the likelihood of catastrophic outcomes in domestic violence situations, and that was just not a recommendation that I could make lightly.
So how long between when you sent that response saying you could not in good faith recommend Mel Gibson and the time you were fired?
It all unfolded very quickly. I was asked to add him to my recommendation on Thursday evening, and I did not sleep at all Thursday night because I understood that the consequence of not fulfilling this request was likely that I would no longer even be in these conversations. Dissent within the Department of Justice is just being aggressively silenced. People are afraid to speak up. They're afraid to object. I confided in a colleague who expressed the view that yes is really the only acceptable answer to requests that are being made by department leadership. And so I understood that the consequences were potentially serious for my career at the Department of Justice. And when I came into work on Friday morning, I said to a colleague, I really think that Mel Gibson might be my downfall. And within hours of saying that, I was being escorted out of my office.
And you got this letter from Todd, with Todd Blanche's signature on it saying that you were being terminated.
Yeah, I've never met Mr. Blanche, but I received that letter with his signature saying I was being terminated.
So we have a statement that we got from Todd Blanche, who's the Deputy Attorney General, for people who don't know. And in it they said, quote, "This former employee's version of events is false. Her decision to voice this erroneous accusation about her dismissal is in direct violation of her ethical duties as an attorney and is a shameful distraction from our own critical mission to prosecute violent crime, enforce our nation's immigration laws, and make America safe again. What is your response to Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche?
Look, Caitlin, it's terrifying that the number 2 official in the Department of Justice believes that my ethical duty is to keep silent about what is going on inside the Department of Justice. My ethical duty as a DOJ employee is to uphold the laws of this country, to do justice, and to serve the people who I was appointed to serve. It is not to hide the fact that career employees like myself are being punished for expressing dissenting views and for refusing to follow direction.
And again, just a reminder, all of this was streamed live right here on the Midas Touch Network, the official destination for shadow hearings. We're going to continue bringing you every second of these hearings because the mainstream media refuses to cover them, but we won't look away. What you're about to hear are the remarks from Senator Adam Schiff, one of the lead Democrats driving these hearings. This was powerful, it was unfiltered, and it was exclusive to the Midas Touch Network. Trust me, you're going to want to see this. Let's roll it.
And we've come to realize, much to our shock, that there's nothing inevitable about this. There's nothing inevitable about democracy or democratization, that this experiment in this country, this great experiment, self-governance, now 2.5 centuries old, is not inevitable. It was improbable at its start. And we've witnessed something we never would have imagined in this country. We have witnessed with incredible rapidity the creation of a climate of fear by this administration. We see universities afraid to speak out, to defend their own students, to defend their own academic freedom. You see universities rushing to make deals with the administration. You see universities cowed into silence, not stepping up to defend other universities. You see members of the press excluded from public events because they don't use the administration's favored parlance. And you don't see other members of the press in solidarity with them. You see law firms rush to cut separate deals. You see lawyers purged from the Department of Justice. You see FBI agents purged from the Bureau. You see scientists purged from their agencies. A wholesale effort to weed out and drive out anyone of independent thinking, anyone who will stand up and defend the rule of law or science or the freedom of thought or expression, right down to ordinary citizens who are now afraid. If the government of the United States can pluck a man off the street and send him to a prison in El Salvador without any kind of due process or any process whatsoever, then no one is safe. And if the government's response to that is to discipline a lawyer who dares to speak the truth to a court, then no one is safe. And the answer to this climate of fear, there really is only one answer, and you're seeing it today, and that is courage. We must demonstrate courage in the face of this fear. In this very committee room, or one like it, Joseph McCarthy and his allies made the country afraid and caused people to inform on each other and betray each other, allowed people and to be driven out of the government and to be persecuted. And we wondered how that could be. We wondered how could so many people be complicit. Well, now we know. Now we know. Now we have witnessed it in our own time. But I will say this of the brave witnesses who have come and testified today. All of the rest of us have to ask ourselves, looking back at the McCarthy era, what would we have done? What would we have done if we were faced with the loss of our jobs, if we were faced with the loss of our livelihood, if we were faced with the loss of our position? What would we have done? Well, you don't have to ask that question. your being here is all the answer anyone could demand, and we are deeply, deeply grateful to you.